To begin our introductions, we first go to John Park. Mr. Park.
Hello, I'm John Park. In 2007, my wife and I moved to Brookhaven and we settled down. I'm a public health IT consultant, which means I write software for public health agencies like the CDC. In 2014, when Brookhaven was still pretty new, I ran for the Brookhaven City Council and was elected. I've been focusing on the following things. Number one, public safety. Our 3-minute response times by the police are the fastest in the county. We are rated as the safest city in DeKalb County. We've innovated our police force with license plate readers, live 911, and mental health first responders. And I've also, as your council member, lowered your taxes in the past 9 years, especially in the past 4 years. And I've increased the livability of our neighborhoods with 41% more green space, and we made improvements to every park. We've done all this while keeping the lowest millage rate in DeKalb County. And we have a AAA bond rating by both rating agencies, which is a better rating than the federal government. We are a solid, well-run city. As your mayor, I promise to continue to innovate our police force, keep our families safe, keep our taxes low, and connect our Peachtree Creek Greenway to the Beltline and to the rest of the city. And my goal is for every resident of Brookhaven to have a park or a green space within a 10-minute walk. I thank you for this opportunity.
Mr. Park, thank you. We now want to turn to Mark Frost. Mr. Frost?
Thank you, Tom. Deidre, thank you for having us. I always enjoy these opportunities where the voters are allowed to see who we really are. Along those lines, I'm a 9-year Brookhaven resident. I'm a husband, father, grandfather, recently retired for the most part. And you might ask, well, what brought me into this? I've never done this before. Well, over the years, I started, I guess, a while ago with, as a lot of us lately have probably been doing, is yelling at the TV. But what it's evolved into is just a lot of concerned citizens that that's echoed a growing chorus that we need to do something because everything isn't fine in Brookhaven. Right now, we're building a $78 million city hall. We'll soon be over $300 million in debt. There's a tax increase on the ballot. And we have cost overruns and just a number of financial problems. Now, what's particularly poignant about this is that this is in the face of, at a time when a lot of Brookhaven residents are struggling with the effects of inflation, and we're building a $78 million city hall. Now, I've been to a lot of council meetings, and it's very clear to me that the current regime or the current leadership thinks everything's fine, but I would tend to disagree by what I've experienced going around and talking with the residents of Brookhaven. As mayor, I'll be an efficient steward of your hard-earned taxpayer dollars, and I will bring sustained growth to Brookhaven.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Ms. Hillary Lind, your opening statement.
Good evening. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and share with everyone why I am running for mayor. I'm running for mayor because the city of Brookhaven lacks the diversity and leadership that represents the community and represents the employees that works for the city of Brookhaven. I also believe that there needs to be more resources that goes to people in the community that are struggling, that were struggling before the pandemic and currently. City residents are continuously being displaced without help from leadership or city council. I'm the best fit for the job because I am the most educated. I have the most experience. I have experience in all levels of government. I've also worked in the financial industry for 16 years, and I've worked in various sectors of the government for over 15 years. I've represented the 400 million people that are here in America today, before and during the pandemic. I've dedicated my life to serve American people. I started my career in politics with former Minority Leader Joyce Beatty, who has showed me the ropes during the 2008 presidential election. I know that I am best fit for the job and capable to lead the city. There are currently 168 employees for the city of Brookhaven. I have helped over 400 million Americans. I am capable to lead the city of Brookhaven.
All right, Ms. Lynn, thanks so much. We now want to turn to Lauren Kiefer for her opening statement. Ms. Kiefer?
Thank you, Tom and Deidre. Hi, I'm Lauren Kiefer. I'm a business owner, an attorney, a wife, and a mother. And I'm running for mayor of Brookhaven because I love Brookhaven. When I look around, this is what I see. We have an amazing police department. We have the Peachtree Creek Greenway that's getting ready to be expanded. We have an array of pools and parks and green spaces for our neighbors to enjoy. But I also see questionable decisions being made, including hiring an alleged sexual predator to run our Parks and Recreation Department, our elected officials voting to increase their salaries while putting a referendum on the ballot that, if passed, will raise property taxes for many Brookhaven citizens, breaking a promise that was made when our city was formed. They've imposed a new tax on our businesses, and we're already seeing the effects on our small businesses in our community. We have ballooning debt. We have disillusioned citizens. These are some hard truths, but here's the reality. We can get our city back on track by electing leaders who are willing to acknowledge that we have challenges and who are willing to address them. As your mayor, that is exactly what I'm going to do. We are going to get Brookhaven back on track. Thank you.
And thank you all. We now move to our questions. And a reminder to everyone, you have 60 seconds to respond. We will start in alphabetical order.
And so we will begin with Mark Frost. Mr. Frost, ground has been broken on the new $78 million Brookhaven City Center. It's been a lightning rod for criticism, as you all know, with many calling it wasteful and inefficient, as it will not have space for several city departments. It's being funded by commercial tax revenue through a special property tax on businesses. So, how would you address the concerns with how it's being paid for in the first place, and how would you move the project forward in a productive way?
Well, thank you for that question. I've led from the front on this issue since I got into the race. As a matter of fact, that was a tipping point issue for me that got me into the race. I have a copy of the contract here, and I've said since the beginning what I'm going to do, or try to do, is find out if we can, of course there'll be a penalty if we can get out of it and then rethink the whole project. Now, in recent, in the last week, one of my opponents has said that he would cut back on the furniture, and it was quoted by Mayor Ernst the other day that another one of the candidates said that she would go back to the drawing board, but originally she was for it before she was against it. But anyways, I've been against it. I have an attorney, a paralegal, and other people looking at the contract, and what I want to do is something that's, well, Chamblee did theirs for $20 million, but I'd like to rethink the whole project and start over again.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Lauren Kiefer, how do you address the concerns and move the project forward?
Right now, we've got a situation where the building has already broken ground. What we're dealing with is a building that is being built basically to be an event space. And one of my opponents actually refers to it as the City Hall and event space. I submit to you that when this project was being built, the citizens of Brookhaven had no idea what the ultimate cost was going to be and what the functions of the City Hall were going to be. And many of us were surprised to find out that critical core city functions are going to be located in a $6 million annex located on Buford Highway. This is not what the citizens want. We need to take the plans back to the drawing board and put all of our core functions in one building and possibly repurpose the building on Buford Highway to do something else that addresses our needs as a city.
Thank you, Ms. Kiefer. Now to Hillary Lind. Ms. Lind, Mark Frost floated the idea of perhaps maybe backing out. Is that something you would support, and how would you move this project forward?
I would not back out of it. However, I think it's important to include the citizens of Brookhaven in that decision. Between 78 million and 90 million is a lot, as I've heard different numbers the last few days. It's a lot, but I feel like we can compare it to what people are doing in Atlanta with Cop City. If you don't like the issue, do something about it. People are out there protesting. They're reaching out to their congressmen to make a change. You can do all of those things because you're paying these people salaries. So if you don't like it, circumvent the system. It can't be on the referendum for November's ballot, but you can absolutely do something. You can create an injunction and have that filed. You know, look at what everybody else is doing in Atlanta. They're actually demanding the change. They're not just here talking. They're not on Facebook arguing and seeing what their opponent is doing. They're actually doing the work to make a change. If the people in Brookhaven don't want it, you can make those efforts and take those steps to make it happen.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. And Mr. Park, how would you attack this?
Well, first of all, it's not just a city hall. It's the start of our city center. 2 years ago, we passed the City Center Master Plan, which called for a series of villages that connects in the center of the city. So this is really a catalyst to start our city center, which comprises mainly the Mayoral lot. The funding not only funds City Hall, but it also funds the connectivity between these villages and the connectivity between City Hall and Event Center, yes, Event Center, and the Peace Creek Greenway, which will connect to the Atlantic Beltline, which will really activate and benefit the SSD properties that are paying into this property. We've had our groundbreaking. I actually asked, because I always like to ask questions, I asked our CFO of Finance, hey, I even asked him before I resigned for council, how much are we in for? He said 15 million. I asked him a couple of weeks ago, how much were we in for? How much would it cost to back out? He said 30 million. What about once the mayor is elected, how much? And he said 60 million. Those are the facts.
Thank you, Mr. Park. Now, the new City Hall is just one topic generating a lot of discussion. Recent annexation efforts also proved a big issue for Brookhaven residents this year. Well, there was recently a petition to annex the Toco Hills and Mary Hills areas into Brookhaven. It was withdrawn over concerns with the transparency and the validity of some of the signatures. So the question for the candidates, do you think the city should consider expanding its city limits, and how would you ensure transparency moving forward so that both current and potential citizens of Brookhaven feel represented? We begin with Lauren Kiefer.
So first, what happened with the Toco Hills attempted annexation was a huge embarrassment, and it was expensive. Our city's leader spent $273,000 to collect a bunch of forged signatures. Nobody seems to know how that happened or who authorized it. As far as additional annexation efforts or expanded annexation, I've said before, I don't know. I can't recommend it. There is no way of knowing. We have not been told what the effects will be to current citizens, what the costs will be for rolling out additional services to new citizens, what additional resources we're going to need, hiring, additional staffing. Will we need additional police department annexes around the city, because we will be separated by I-85 in the middle of the city? We don't know. We're not being given that information. We need more transparency before we can make a decision on how to move forward.
Ms. Kiefer, thank you. We turn now to Hillary Lynn. Ms. Lynn?
Yes, I think the annexation efforts was a covert and backdoor way to defraud the public and the citizens of Brookhaven. There was no call to the public to let them know what was going on. In fact, I actually had a conversation with the current mayor a couple of weeks ago, and he told me it was absolutely a backdoor conversation happening with not only him, all of city leadership as well as county leadership, and that it was going to happen regardless. And so I think that's very disappointing, and it's not transparency. As a mayor and as a leader of the city, you should be absolutely transparent with the public, because these are the people that is paying your salary. And so I don't think that annexation should happen at this moment. If we have people in the city that's being displaced, why are we going through these efforts and spending money to annex another part of the city and we're not taking care of home?
Ms. Lynn, thank you. Mr. Park, do you support annexation?
First of all, people want to come into Brookhaven. They want to come into Brookhaven because of 3-minute response times and lower taxes. So anyone can understand why they want to come into Brookhaven. 9 years ago, at my very first council meeting, Children's Healthcare and Executive Park applied to come into Brookhaven. At that time, I was against it. But the neighborhood, and the neighbors in the area, the residential properties, said to me, you're going to annex these properties, get all their tax dollars, and leave us out in the cold. At that point, I made a promise that anyone that wanted to come into Brookhaven near these commercial properties could. And we wanted to bring them in a fair and equitable way. Our policy in Brookhaven is that we will go no further than Claremont to the east and the city of Atlanta to the south to have fair and equitable service delivery lines. Every time we annex a new area that people request to come into a new area, we have to redraw the police beats and provide new services.
Mr. Park, thank you. You spoke of response times, and we want to touch on that a little bit right now. All the candidates, all of you have applauded the Brookhaven Police Department and its officers. Through reporting here at Fox 5, we know Brookhaven Police, they have competitive and compensation packages and high retention rates.
And we do want to address all of that, but we want to make sure that we give Mr. Frost an opportunity to answer that question. There's so much to delve into during this half hour.
I'll try to go quicker. Yes, I was at that hearing, the Toco Hill hearing, and it was embarrassing in the sense that a lot of people from Toco Hill were in the room, and when one of the council people suggested the great transparency of the city, the whole room erupted in laughter, which to me was embarrassing. But as mayor, I would shut down all annexation efforts until we get our own house in order. There's a lot of work to be done, and we need to do that first. And the theory I have is based on the financial trajectory of the city, is that I'm sensing that there's a need. They figured out that we're going to fall short in terms of the money that we need to do everything they've committed us to. So there's this, we're raising taxes, we're trying to annex properties, and we just need to slow this all down and do it thoughtfully and in the best interest of Brookhaven residents and the people that want to be annexed at some point.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Apologies for that. Let's talk about now the police department, which you have all applauded, and those response times. There are concerns, however, over long wait times for ambulance services, other first responders.
That's right, which brings us to our next question for the candidates. How do you plan to address that issue, and would you ask the state to allow the city to form its own ambulance service? And Ms. Lind, we'll begin with you.
Excuse me. I would respond in a way where we can actually go to the police department and talk about that response time. For myself, I don't think that response time is that extended, especially given the fact that Brookhaven was one of the first cities to be able to access the 911 system and be on their way to that call while that call is coming through. I think adding a little bit more people to the police force will be able to mitigate that issue. But I mean, it's only about 60,000 citizens here in the city of Brookhaven. I don't think it's that big of an issue. I think we can spend money in other areas than to challenge this over and over.
Thank you, Ms. Lind. Mr. Park.
Back in February, my father, I thought, had a stroke. Turns out he had severe dehydration, and he was passed out in the garage, and the ambulance took 30 minutes to get there, and that is unacceptable. We've already asked the state board to allow Brookhaven to have our own ambulance, and we will do it in a heartbeat if they allow us to do so. But they said, well, we're going to do another 6-month evaluation period. If you give us anything in Brookhaven, we will do it better, period. If the state will allow us to have our own ambulance service, we will do it better, period. We will serve our residents, and we will execute like we've done with everything, like filling potholes, providing the best police response times, doing it with the lowest taxes in Brookhaven, and doing it with you, the community, to bring us all together.
All right, Mr. Park, thank you. When I turn now to Mark Frost. Mr. Frost, how much power does a mayor have to bring in an ambulance service to the town of Brookhaven?
Well, that's a point that's been, I love that question because I brought that up. You know, what can we influence and what can we not influence? And in my view, the answers to a lot of these questions is that we're not trying hard enough to influence these things. I did not know until recently that we had a problem with the ambulance service, but my job as mayor is to do the will and voice of the people. And they seem to be, there's a large voice that says that we need to do something about it. And the other issue, I know that's not what we're talking about, but the schools. There's a big a lot of people are talking about what we're going to do with our school system. But anyways, getting back to the ambulance, again, we've got to make sure we can afford what we've got, but I'm absolutely for doing our own ambulance service in Brookhaven.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Ms. Kiefer, would you also be in support?
We need to go through and let the state have their 6-month review time. And if at the end of that review period, our response times for ambulances are not better, then absolutely we need to pursue every avenue to make sure that our citizens are responded to in a fast and timely way in the event that they are experiencing a medical emergency. I personally am telling my friends and neighbors in DeKalb County, in Brookhaven, that if you have a medical emergency and there is any way for you to avoid calling the ambulance, get in a car, call an Uber, call a friend, get to the hospital yourself. The ambulances cannot be relied upon. That is not sustainable. That is not acceptable. Our citizens deserve better.
That's a question on a lot of voters' minds as we turn now to the next question. Deidre?
Thank you, Tom. Well, over the weekend, Brookhaven police pledged a full investigation after multiple residents reported finding flyers with anti-Semitic and hateful messages. Now, the police department encouraged residents to embrace the city's diversity and said hate speech would not be tolerated in the city. Now, how would you candidates, as mayor, address such disturbing incidents, this one coming on the heels of the Hamas attack on Israel, and how do you plan to promote diversity? At John Park, we start with you.
Well, first of all, as an immigrant myself, I know what it feels like to not feel welcomed. The first thing I'll do is make sure that every Brookhaven resident, whatever they are feeling welcome. Last year, actually, we had a horrible vandalism incident on the side of a building, and also they painted anti-Semitic paint on our signs. All of that was covered up and replaced and within an hour. And also our police investigated immediately, and using our license plate readers, using our technology, was able to find the perpetrator and arrest him. So the first thing I would say is that we stand with everyone, we stand for unity, and that we will not tolerate hatred in the city of Brookhaven.
All right, Mr. Park, thanks. We turn now to Mark Frost. Mr. Frost?
Yes, I was made aware of that and the flyers, and I just found it disgusting. And I was, like Mr. Park, I was actually the son of an immigrant, and it's been a fabric of my life since I was a child. Diversity and inclusion was just a normal state of mind, so I've never really understood. I admit the realities of it, but I've never really understood where all this comes from. But we do need to address it, and we need to out the people who are doing this kind of thing. I mean, right now we're living in a nation where people are going after people who don't believe as they do, and targeting them, and there's all kinds of. We need to get our civilization needs to be more civil, and we can start doing that by how we lead our cities and engaging in activities and going out there and finding the people who are doing stuff like this, and making sure that the public knows who they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Ms. Kiefer, how do you respond during a time like this?
As a Jewish woman, as a person who had family members perished in the Holocaust and survived from the Holocaust, as somebody who has been the victim of anti-Semitism personally, these flyers, this action, this behavior is not acceptable. It is hurtful. It is infuriating, and it's not going to be tolerated. I met with the police department immediately upon finding out about these flyers. I spoke with the city manager. We are going to find the people responsible. We are not going to let hateful language against Jewish people or against any people define us and define our city. This is not reflective of the opinions of people who live in Brookhaven. If you have your hate, keep it away from us. We aren't buying it.
All right. Ms. Kiefer, thank you for that. Hillary Lind?
Yes, as a black woman in this country, I'm all too familiar with the experience of racism and hate, and I don't think it should be tolerated. It's not okay. We are all humans. However, as we know, racism is embedded in the fabric of this country, and we need to be able to mitigate that and overcome that. And situations such as this is never okay, but I really feel like it's up to leadership to get these things to stop. Unfortunately, I've seen situations like this over and over again. Dunwoody actually gets a lot of those flyers several times a year, and nothing is being done by leadership anywhere. And in order to overcome hate for black and brown people and from our Jewish brothers and sisters, we need help from leadership to be able to overcome those things and let everyone know, not just one sector of the group, let everyone know that hate is never okay and should never be tolerated.
Thank you. A unity more important now than ever. Our last question of the debate deals with affordable housing. Tom.
And the city of Brookhaven, just a little more than 10 years old, and in that time has experienced population growth, as you all know. Census data showing more than 4,000 new residents since incorporation. Housing prices have also increased. Starting with Mark Frost, the question is, how would you try to prevent current residents being priced out of home ownership in Brookhaven, and how would you try to make sure people experiencing housing burdens or homelessness have affordable housing?
Well, that's something that's been central to a lot of the conversations that I've been having with Brookhaven residents. And what I'm first concerned about is the seniors who are having to move out because they can't afford the tax increases, because even though they keep saying that our millage rates stayed the same, our taxes haven't gone up, but they are going up. A lot of people in Brookhaven just can't afford to live here anymore because of the valuations have gone up so much. And I've contended from the beginning that what we need to do is do some kind of averaging. There's nothing that says we can't reduce the millage rate when the valuations go up, and that's what I propose. And then we've now added 4 millage points to businesses, and they keep saying that the taxpayers aren't going to have to pay for that. Well, wait a minute. When you go get your sandwich at the sandwich shop, you're going to have to pay more for that sandwich, so they can pay that extra 4%. So again, we need to roll back and help the citizens, especially in this time of need, at a time when they need it the most, and that's what I plan on doing.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Ms. Kiefer, how do you address this crisis?
Well, the first thing is I'm recommending to everybody that I speak to that they vote against the referendum that's on the ballot that will take away the tax protections that are given to our original Brookhaven homeowners. That will be a broken promise. It's not a good thing. I don't support it. We have a crisis of affordable housing. It's very personal to me, as I have an adult child living at home because he can't afford to live on his own, and that's okay. He watches the dog. But this is a problem when we have children's health care getting ready to open. We're going to have 6,000 employees there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we need to have housing not just for the neurosurgeons, but for the people who work in the cafeteria, for the people who greet people at the door. Everybody is entitled to have affordable housing, and it's going to take a lot of collaboration to make that happen.
Lauren Kiefer, thank you. Now to Hillary Lynn. How would you address the issue of affordable housing?
Yes, affordable housing has been a problem in Brookhaven for a very long time. Since the beginning, Brookhaven leadership has worked overtime to displace families along Buford Highway as well as everywhere else in the city. There are no resources in place to mitigate that problem. All the resources that are listed on the City of Brookhaven site are actually non-existent. I went through each and every one of those numbers, and most of those, they don't exist, and if they exist, they actually don't have any funding. Myself, I actually assist people on a weekly basis providing resources so that they can stay in their home. I see people every day being evicted or losing their homes because those resources simply don't exist. I think leaderships need to be able to expand their affordable housing program and create a financial literacy program. The mayor actually told me until annexation happens that he will not help residents in the city of Brookhaven with any resources to mitigate homelessness.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Mr. Park, you'll close it out.
So we actually do have affordable housing. A model for affordable housing in Brookhaven is the senior affordable housing homes right next to $1 Million homes on Johnson Ferry. I think that's a model that we can use along Buford Highway, where we involve the housing authority and we bring in the developers and build affordable housing. But the most important thing, a very simple thing, is supply and demand. We need more supply of housing where the infrastructure can support it. The doctors, the nurses, the phlebotomists at the new hospitals need a place to live, and they shouldn't be driving in from Johns Creek or Alpharetta. We actually turned down a zoning on Buford Highway earlier this year because they just wanted to build another stick-built 5-story apartment building. That's not enough. We need more density where it can be supported and where the workforce is needed. And basically, we just need supply and demand. And I will work with the developers to bring more units into Brookhaven.
Mr. Park, thank you. So many issues to talk about, but that is all the time we have for questions. We're now going to give the candidates time for a closing statement.
Now, the order was determined by random draw. We begin with Mark Frost. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you. In closing, I said at the beginning that this is an opportunity for voters to see who they're really getting, and that's one of the things I want to assure you is that the person that you vote for today is the person who's going to be your mayor tomorrow. I've made it very clear from the beginning who I am, what I stand for. There's nothing vague. It's in high detail, and I just want the voters to know that I'm not financed by any special interest groups, large business associations, PACs, super PACs, or political parties. What you see is what you get, and I'm beholden to nobody except for the voters in Brookhaven. And sustainable growth is what I do. In the private sector, I'm an accomplished asset manager. I've been entrusted with up to $100 million in assets that produced $250 million in revenue with 300 employees. So I'm the best suited to put a business perspective on this office and do a great job for the voters or the residents of Brookhaven. Thank you for having me.
Mark Frost, thank you. Hillary Lind.
I appreciate you guys having me here today. I want to say I am the best fit for the job. I am best fit to be the mayor of Brookhaven because the city of Brookhaven actually needs a mayor that actually cares, a leader that actually cares, and that's not going to come in and change things up. That's going to be completely transparent with them. I have worked in my private time. I'm a mother first, and I have children with special needs, and I work full time. And outside of that time, I use my own private resources to provide information and resources to people that are losing their homes on a daily basis. I have the experience. I've been in politics for a very long time, and the city of Brookhaven needs a mayor that's going to be transparent. They don't need a mayor that has a connection and a relationship with current leadership who's already shown that they are willing to allow the city of Brookhaven to lose money, to lose $7 million.
Hillary Lind, thank you. John Park.
Thank you for this forum. As your council member, I have built the best police force in the country. I've lowered your taxes, your city taxes. I can't do much about the school board or the county. Even with the SSC, the commercial properties pay lower tax than they do in unincorporated DeKalb. I've increased our livability with 41% more green space, park improvements everywhere. As your mayor, I will continue to innovate our police force, keep our taxes low, and increase the livability by making sure that the P Street Greenway connects to the Beltline, as well as to all our neighborhoods in Brookhaven. And my goal is for every resident of Brookhaven to be within a 10-minute walk of a park or green space. I'm John Park. I humbly ask for your vote.
Mr. Park, thank you. Now to Lauren Kiefer. Ms. Kiefer?
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to everyone today. I'm Lauren Kiefer, and I'm asking for your vote on November 7th. I've been involved in this community for almost 30 years, and I care about this community. I'm optimistic about the future of Brookhaven. I'm just pessimistic about the direction our leadership is taking us in. As you've seen tonight, our leadership is failing us. They've made questionable decisions, there's out-of-control spending, and there's broken trust in the community. Now, Brookhaven is a wonderful city, and that's why we've all chosen to live here. But here's the reality. We can't afford what we're doing, and we need to change the way we do business. No problem has ever been solved by pretending that it doesn't exist. I have business experience, I have the community service experience, and I have the passion to lead our city as its next mayor. It's time to get Brookhaven back on track. I'm asking for your vote on November 7th.
Thank you, candidates, and thank you all for being with us. Now, early voting is underway and goes on until October 29th.
And Election Day is Tuesday, November the 7th. Polls are open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
And do be sure to join us on Fox 5, fox5atlanta.com.